Hi, welcome to Mercurious Being. I'm Amy Jensen, and today we are going to go through the astrology of Britney Spears and the hashtag Free Britney movement. I'm going to try to not get into super particular astrological languaging, just because it can get overwhelming. I already tried to shoot a video the other day about this, and I think it just got too long and too much and kind of really missed the point of what I would like to do with this, which is really just kind of go over the energies of her chart and what's been happening in her life, and to serve not as curiosity, but support, really, and understanding. When I watched the Framing Britney Spears documentary several months ago, I just was so struck by the karma, obviously, the karma she had been experiencing, but also interestingly that it was her fans, that it is her fans who've started this movement and are freeing her of this conservatorship. And so I really wanted to look into her chart. Also, some of the things that came up in the documentary and then in the court hearing yesterday just spoke to me so much as just as a human, as a mother, as a daughter, not being able to have that connection with her own mother and her own children, and then just the way the public and the media treated her, and how she kind of became this scapegoat for feminine sexuality, although at the same time this very sexualized image was placed on her as kind of her place in the music industry. So just about finding her voice. I guess that's what kind of this whole exploration will be, is just a really big encouragement, looking at her chart and the energies ahead, which, by the way, I think are very favorable for her, and the timing is great. She probably works with an astrologer or someone close to her in her camp. Knew good timing, or again, maybe just the timing of her chart ripened and blossomed, and again with the attention of the fans who were and are her support and her encouragement. So I guess my advice and encouragement to the fans and the hashtag Free Britney movement is keep going, keep supporting her, even after she gets out of this conservatorship, which I believe she will. Please just stay in her corner and just always make sure that you can encourage her to use her voice. But I think once she gets free from here, we'll see her emerge again. She has such strength. Can you imagine enduring this conservatorship for 13 years? And then before that, really 10, 11 years in the music industry, having a wild amount of success and fame and attention, and still remaining whole and strong within that. I mean, looking at her chart, and let's pull that up, she's just an amazing person. So I don't need to tell you guys that. If you're watching this, you are probably already a fan. Look at all this. She's got all Sagittarius, stellium in her third house of communication, plus Black Moon Lilith, and I've got both Black Moon points in there. So she has a strong voice obviously, but when you look back at the documentary, I was struck with how strong and big her voice was as a child. It really reminded me of Judy Garland. And the clarity that she had. And then those beautiful eyes have that Sagittarian kind of, I always think of Sagittarius, I always think of a horse, but there's always also like a deer-like quality, I would say, with Britney, with those big eyes. So she has this strength, but also this tenderness, and she has a lot of vulnerability as well. She has Neptune square Mars, and Mars is in her 12th house. So that's one, that and her, so a few things going on as far as her things that really have been triggered in her chart, and just experiencing that 12th house Mars. 12th house Mars is basically, Mars is your agency, it's your immune system. It is the white knight, it is that ability to fight off what you need to fight. And it's in her 12th house, which is the house of karma. It's the house of Israel, it's the house of unseen enemies, unknown forces. It's also the house of meditation and mysticism and music and photography and large institutions. So it's just like there's a really big service aspect to the 12th house. So what I see also happening, the spoiler alert, I always do this, like big picture, what I think I could really see Britney doing as she gets older. So 12th house planets are really tough when you're younger. It's a lot of energy in a house that you can't really connect with. It's like the dark before the dawn. Whereas the first house right here is after daybreak. It's visible to the world. It's the house of your ascendant, and then those planets within. And she's got Saturn and Pluto and Heiress, which is an asteroid, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, in her first house. So she has all this Sagittarius strength. She's got this hidden Mars, so her agency, and her Mars also squares Neptune, so her agency is kind of eroded or manipulated, okay? But good news, as she gets older, she will have that strength that comes from that 12th house Mars, and she'll probably end up being, I could really even see her being a leader, and a leader in the music industry, not only in her creativity, but maybe taking on the mantle or starting her own record company, or really representing underrepresented people, okay, people who have lost their voice, people who have lost their agency. Okay, so that's kind of getting ahead of myself, but so she's got that sense eroded with that Neptune squaring it. So besides having that strength, that's a little bit of a weak point. It's like she's so open and so sweet that she could be vulnerable to manipulation, sensitive to drugs, sensitive to sugar, even alcohol, caffeine. It's just really like an open aura. So it's the part that makes her really compassionate and empathetic, but it also is the part that can be a part of weakness and vulnerability. All right, the Pluto in her first house, she is a truth teller, okay? So she is the person who's going to say what needs to be said, and it's not always going to go well for her. So people will put all their shame and blame on her for being the one to call something out. So instead of owning their own shadow, their own power, it's like they scapegoat someone with the first house Pluto. So she's kind of taken that badge on, or worn that badge, excuse me. And I would say that definitely earlier in her career, and looking back on all of that, it just is really terrible to see that happen to her in that documentary. And another aspect of that is her Heiress in the 7th house. What I thought was interesting as I'm doing her astrology, I don't work with Heiress, Sirius, or really Black Moon Lilith, but as I dug into her chart, those really strong female, and when I say female, I mean receptive, not necessarily gender, just that yin-yang, and it's the yin principle, but those archetypes really came forward in her chart, besides her Venus. Okay, so I'll step into her Sirius in the 7th house. So 7th house is the general public, So Heiress was the goddess who was not invited to the party, who had a lot of rage, who, you know, threw the poison apple out and had all the other goddesses fight over it. But to me, it seems like this Heiress energy was directed at her. And again, just all of this stuff just thrown at her for being a strong woman in charge of her own sexuality, in charge of her own voice and her singing career at that time, and just having this really big backlash. All right, the Venus, out of bounds Venus in Capricorn in her 4th house, it's conjunct her south node. So that means in her past life, also these issues of creativity came up, and partnership, and in the 4th house, really her needs being subsumed by the needs of her family. So in this life, really coming into feeling and healing. I kind of skipped from her Venus to her South Node, but those of you who know me, who do readings with me, know that this is the way it's going to go. So just roll with me. We'll bring it right around. We'll bring it back. So her Venus is conjunct her South Node. Her North Node is up here in the 10th house in Cancer. So when I say fans and hashtag Free Britney movement, y'all are up here. Okay, so the North Node is her evolutionary path. So the South Node represents past lives. If you don't do past lives, it's like just an energetic or emotional overtone. It's kind of our fallback. So when we're not working our evolutionary path, if we find ourselves in fallback mode to like, I know better, I kind of fall into that old habit, that's our South Node. So her South Node in Capricorn in the 4th, let's just talk a sec about that. That again, 4th house South Node, her needs subsumed by the needs of the family and the tribe. And this is how you do things. In the sign of Capricorn, was hard limits, probably a lack, not having everything that you need or want. So kind of, I can't think of the word, kind of that lack consciousness, poverty consciousness, just a harshness in the past life. Saturn squares the South Node, so just practical limits, sense of futility. So resolve, doing great works and having success, and I think she has achieved that in spades. When I talk about her evolutionary path in the 10th house in Cancer, so the 4th house is your little tribe, your community, your little family that you know every day. 10th house is a wider community, and not everyone has, if they have a 10th house North Node, has wild fame. But it does mean that that person or planets in the 10th house are seeking to go beyond just their family. So even in a small town, it's like, oh, maybe everybody in the small town knows you, or you teach and you make connections outside of the really smaller family group. Her North Node in the 10th house, in the sign of Cancer, which is the natural ruler of the 4th, Capricorn is the natural ruler of the 10th, so her wider community is out there, and it's a very Cancerian group. So all of the fans, all of the Free Britney movement, you are her North Node in the 10th house. She's achieved worldwide renown. Her fans are this family. And the Cancerian aspect is they have your back, Britney. Okay, they love you. You are part of their tribe. And, you know, many times in readings with people, maybe they have family issues or friend issues. Everybody has different issues. But just because we're not born with that support in our original family of origin or situation, doesn't mean that we can't create that. And I see that, you know, her chart, she's created this path out of this, a lot of karma from her past life, really. So keep going with that. Venus, her Venus is out of bounds. So what does that mean? It means that she's super, super creative. So Venus, the god of love and goddess of love and beauty and the arts and attraction, her Venus is in Capricorn, so she's really good at structuring her creativity. And I think that showed up in the early person who represented her, talked about her drive and her discipline and her eagerness. So she did the work, she does the work. And so that's obviously why this conservatorship is and should be getting flagged, because she's been working this whole time. So why is she not free? If you can remember dance steps and lyrics and do all of that and make millions of dollars, you can take care of yourself, right? We all know that. This is just such a given. So it's just really, also, she's really exposing this for other conservatorships. So she's, again, that 10th house Cancer, she's creating not only her musical fans, but she is, she's activating this 12th house, larger group of service, big service. So 6th house is the house of everyday service. Opposite that is the house of large service. So she's not only helping people with her music and her fans who love her, she's going to be helping conservatorships. And like I said, she's going to be helping people who don't have their own voice and their own agency. So, and if she were sitting here with me, I would say, this doesn't mean you have to do all of this, okay? This is just the way I work. I like to throw out a lot of possibilities, but I could see her doing that. So Britney, I got plans for you. Besides running a music, changing the music industry, starting your own record label, representing represented people, your work with conservatorship, and just people who don't have their own voice, period, in any way you'd like to define that, I would encourage it, because you're really wired for that. And it's as if she tapped into this time. I believe we come as we come at the right time, because her message is just so much bigger. If you think back, minimize, if a person would minimize her origin as a pop star, right? Honey, that's what I love about this out of bounds Venus, right? Okay, she comes, she's just a little girl, right? She's just has that. No, she's a powerhouse. She came in here with this out of bounds Venus. And when I see people with a strong Venus, usually they come in with this beautiful package, they look beautiful, they can sound beautiful, they present Venus. But there's a really big 1-2 punch behind there when they have a strong Venus. It's almost like that archetype's coming down and really reinvigorating the collective, right? Re-enlivening it. So her Venus was out of bounds. She was born during the wholeness phase, and this is some Adam Gainsburg, all the phase work that I'll mention, and I'll have his link in the material underneath the video. So she was born during the Gemini Venus which is the phase we are in currently. It started last June, so that's super supportive, and it'll end in January of 2022. So she was born in the Gemini phase, and one of the phase about the Gemini Venus cycle, again, this is from Adam Gainsburg, Soul Sign Astrology, and I'm going to just pick out, so the Gemini archetype playing out in the Venus cycle. One of the things of the list that is part of that, you can get this wonderful Venus calendar on his site, but the point that I thought was very interesting was external or artificial influences on human civilizations come to light. Just manipulation, influence, some coercion and messaging. So really, she's exposing all of that, okay? The Gemini support of that is that this movement that came about to support her. Because in the past, if this had happened to some star in the 1950s or 70, any time before now, right? How would you know? You would just have like, oh yeah, that's right, you know, she's had problems or something like that. It's like, oh, and you wouldn't hear about it. And it could go undercover. But now when people know and understand and are able to connect and communicate, it's a whole different world. And so this is where all of this technology and connectivity is awesome, okay? So she came in this Gemini cycle when she was born. It's currently another Gemini cycle. She was born in the wholeness phase. And the wholeness phase is when Venus is, so physically, the star is highest and brightest in the sky. Okay, so that's also very descriptive of who she is, being very high and bright, right? She's very shiny, right? Symbolizes the wisdom of our bodies and the courage of our hearts to be available for the greater good. Standing in your own skin, Britney, and being loyal to your intuition. Okay, so that Venus is really, really supportive of that. So Venus is the farthest from the sun as seen from the earth, and the Venus is slowing down, ending in motionless, suspended radiance. It represents inward stability, repose, or completion. So this phase is about how your inner light becomes both your path and your teacher to a fulfilled life. Carry on innate personal magnitude that you are learning to utilize for societal benefit. A reminder that you are always whole and already whole. And your wholeness equals your ability to receive love as completely as you can give it. So it's about transforming the relationship from light over dark to realizing the light with the dark. All right. Her Mars phase, also from Adam Gainsburg, is the exploration phase. So that's where she was born as far as Mars's phase. Mars was a morning star at that time. So for her, keying into morning star Mars would be really powerful and really potent. Just go up before dawn and find that morning star Mars when it is in that phase. And I don't have that information with me right now. I can add that. So for her phase, fully exploring the reach of one's effectiveness, presence, or ability. Seeking lots of individual expression, acting on instinct, themes of personal growth. Okay, so that instinct and intuition is, again, all of the Sagittarius in her third house. The third house is the house of curiosity. It's the house of communications. It is the house of close community. But all of that Sagittarius in that house is, she needs to learn what she wants to learn. She needs to go where she wants to go. She needs to travel the world. If she wanted to study music everywhere in the world, she could, or just visit people and connect with people all over the world. It's like, that is where she's at. That's what she came in with, right? So Mercury, she was born in an air elemental year, and this is from Gary Caton's work, and I'll link that. So her prenatal, I won't go into all the astrology. So air element, she was born into the identity trigon, so a dharma. So she's really working her path, and what she's doing is challenging in the collective. So it's developing and expressing herself in ways that challenge the collective. She's developing and expressing a persona not previously available because of social restraint. All right, so where am I going from here? I'm going to try to not make this video too long. I see we're already at 23 minutes. I'm going to keep it under 30 minutes, and I'm most likely doing a part 2 and possibly a part 3 because I want to key in well, I can just for a moment say that I want to key in the inception of the hashtag Free Britney movement, which was in February of 2009, and I put it down as a 20 degrees Aquarius sun. And so that was really linked in that 20 degrees Aquarius Leo keeps coming up. Her karmic eclipse is at 7 degrees Leo, 51 minutes, up here in the 11th house. The 11th house is about receiving love. The 5th house, where her moon in Aquarius is, so her inner reigning need is an Aquarian one. So individual, being herself, being in control of her individuality and her creativity, and children, right? That's all 5th house stuff. And love, being love, letting herself express herself, just being in the limelight, but in Aquarius, how she wants to be in the limelight and create. And the karmic eclipse, so that was the eclipse, solar eclipse before she was born, 7 degrees Leo. Interestingly, yesterday on the court date, what was that, 7 degrees Leo? You guys, I have so many charts around here. Okay, the court date, 7 degrees Leo, Mars, transiting Mars. Okay, so Mars again in her natal chart, in her 12th house, locked away. That's her agency. She's coming into her own now. Mars as a transiting current planet right on her karmic eclipse. So activating it. The sun yesterday, right at her midheaven. That's her house of career, but it also, you know, affects the 4th house of how she lives. It obviously affects everything, but it's the 1, 4, 7, 10 axis. I'm really getting excited, so I won't go too far because I can go too far. And yesterday also the transiting Saturn was conjunct her sun, and just last week Saturn-Uranus squared. Uranus is in her 8th house, so we're activating her 2, 5, 8, 11 axis. Self-worth, creativity, her values, other people's value and money, okay? And then 11th, her receiving love, and that's the house where her karmic eclipse is in. And so her even going back to other parts of her life that triggered this conservatorship or linked into that karmic eclipse. And so I think this might be a great time to stop. I just want to stop and say a couple things about just as far as her fans and supporting her, going into the Vedic system, and I won't go into all of that, but where her Mercury and her sun are in the heavens, it's connected in with the throat chakra. So communication, expression of our creativity, ability to speak the words we desire to speak, and to create the things we desire to create. And the color for that is blue and blue topaz. So those would be really supportive colors and a stone for her. Also for her Mars, it is located in the solar plexus, or the spirit chakra, between the solar plexus and the heart. So aquamarine, and with a silvery tinge, is a good color for that, and the stone aquamarine, and that also is really linked into the throat as well. But that energy center is the one that contacts and gets guidance from angels and heavenly bodies. So that would be another one to link in for her. I chose a couple stones as well, and aquamarine was one of them that I was thinking of because of the throat, but it's also aquamarine and rhodonite, or rose quartz, excuse me. So I chose rhodonite and rose quartz because of their pink and that heart support, and I just think of pink when I think of Britney Spears, and that Venus and that heart center, but also why can't I say that today? Aquamarine is a really great stone. But they're also really good for mother and child, rose quartz and aquamarine, mother, child, and they're very protective of miscarriages. So I did not know until reading about the court, what she talked about in the court yesterday about having the IUD and wanting to have children. So these would be really great stones for her to have to help support and nourish her reproductive system as she gets herself back online with her own self, with her own intuition and her own agency. So rhodonite is for emotional balance of the heart. It clears emotional wounds from the past. It aids in cases of emotional self-destruction, codependency, and abuse, encourages self-love and forgiveness, promotes calm in dangerous and unsettling situations. It builds confidence and alleviates confusion. Rose quartz is a stone of universal love. It restores trust and harmony in relationships. It encourages unconditional love. It purifies and opens the heart to promote self-love, deep inner healing, and feelings of peace. It's calming in times of grief. It strengthens the balance and balances the physical heart, the circulatory system, and releases impurities from bodily fluids. So it'll be helpful for her to help cleanse her body after getting rid of those chemicals. It's good for kidneys, which is ruled by Venus, and adrenals, which are ruled by Mars. So helping to balance both of those, because I imagine the adrenals would be really an overload after being kind of without your own agency for that long. Aquamarine is for the throat. It's a stone of courage. It clarifies perception, it sharpens the intellect, and it clears confusion. It promotes self-expression, it soothes fears, and it sharpens intuition. It is also protective. It's good for the immune system as well. So, good, we're right at 30 minutes. And I'm going to stop there, but I'm going to get back into the timing of the court dates and of the next court motion, which is on July 14th, I think. Yes, July 14th. If anyone has a date or a time for that, that would be really helpful. And if anyone has a time and specific date for the initial hashtag Free Britney movement, tweet, whatever that was, I have February 8th, 2009 as a date. I don't have a time. I'm just working with the time that I've kind of intuitively come up with, but that would be super helpful if anyone has that. And then a time for her next, the motion in July would be really great as well. Thank you for joining me. I hope this has been helpful for you as the fans and the movement, and mostly I just really want this energy to be a positive energy for Britney, just to be really supportive. And if any of that information or energy is supportive to you, then I will have done what I have wanted to do. So thank you all for joining me. And wow, I just want to say something that I always say at the end of a yoga class, which is just remember that you're always whole and complete and perfect, just as you are right now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not some time off in the future, but right now. Namaste.